Hey, this is Geoff Hohwald. I did write a book called The Banjo Primer, and we also sell a lot of banjos through Banjo Warehouse. And I get a lot of calls from people wanting to learn to play the banjo. And typically, if they're in the middle of it, what they're doing is they're going to YouTube or they bought a book and they're learning songs. All right. And I just wanted to talk about a couple other things, ways of approaching the banjo if you're a beginner, that might help you to play more clearly and make better progress. So the the best way to learn anything would be what's called sequential learning. And this is when you go to college, you get a textbook and you do step one, step two, and then once you've learned those two steps, then you have the information to do step three. Okay. Now the folk instruments, the mandolins, the fiddles, the bluegrass guitar, dobro, all that stuff, for the most part, is more conversational, where the artist who's very talented kind of gives you a sequence, but usually there's all kind of things that aren't clear to a beginner. Okay. If you're an experienced musician, you don't have any problem with this, but the beginner needs that absolute sequential learning. Okay. So when we did the Banjo Primer, which we wrote 38 years ago, and have since rewritten 5 times, we finally nailed the sequential learning, and it is the only book on the market that actually does that like this does, along with video supplement and audio supplement. And once again, we've reshot the videos, I believe, 3 different times. Okay, so what's missing in all that, or what is needed for someone to be successful as a musician? And the first thing would be having a good sense of timing. So I'm going to just show you kind of a way that we do timing in our banjo clinics, which we do clinics where you can come and visit us. And so what we're going to do, we just take a metronome and we set it. In this case, I'll just use 84. You can use anything you want. And you just tap your foot to the beat. So since we don't have a on foot camera, I'm going to clap. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do that for about a minute, and then you speed it up. And I'll go up to like 100. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is very simple. When you hear the click, you clap. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're playing in perfect time, there's energy that comes out of your hands, if you want to call it, or out of yourself. And this is the same phenomenon as if you're at a concert, bluegrass concert, rock concert, whatever, and everybody starts clapping along with the music. At some point, everybody gets in sync, and you have this unbelievable energy that comes out of that, and you have this feeling of serenity. Okay. So after you clap with the metronome for maybe 15 or 20 seconds, you'll start to lock in, and you will get and you will feel energy emanating from your clap. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing that I'll show you, which is a fairly simple idea, is to, on your banjo, play a simple pattern. And what it is, we're playing the 5th string, 3rd string, 1st string. I'm going to try to avoid any terminology because it kind of gets in the way, okay? So in this case, we're just going to play the 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, okay? That's 7 notes. Now, I'm going to call that a 7-note roll because it has 7 notes in it. And I'll do that again. So it goes 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1. And then there's a pause after that 7th note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, pause. Now, once again, this is not an instructional video. This is more of a way to explain what's going on in teaching, and maybe if you're using a certain method and you're not clear as to what's going on, this might help you out. Okay, now what I can do is play that 7-note roll with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 1. Once again, to review, we're playing 5th string, 3rd, 1st, 5th string, 3rd, 4th. So it's thumb, index on the 3rd, middle on the 1st, and you do it again. Thumb on the 5th, index, middle, and then middle on the 1st. In fact, just play along with me for just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we started at 80, we're at 110, so we'll go up arbitrary 132. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do that for about 30 seconds, and then you'll move the metronome up a couple notches, so we're at 134 now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and so on and so forth. So you may then go to 136, 138. And you do this for 15 minutes a day for 2 weeks. And you should notice that your hand's much more relaxed. It's stronger from doing this. It's in the right position. The banjo sounds better. All the notes are about the same volume. Everything's clear, and you'll notice that you're starting to feel some of that power. And here's what it sounds like, the power. Now listen to if this is played absolutely perfectly. So the perfection is what causes the power. Now let me play it a little faster, and you might hear the energy a little bit better that way. So that is the sound of the banjo. Now, if you want to do these exercises in a much more structured way, we have something that's called beginning warm-up exercises. It's a purple book. You can get it on Amazon, or you can get it through Banjo Compass. And these have a video supplements, and they play one thing, which is this, for 2 hours. Now, if you go to Banjo Compass and call the number, we do have some of these that have DVDs in them in case you need a DVD. Otherwise, you can get a download, and all you do is you just put it on, and you just play along with me, and it'll just happen naturally, kind of like a Richard Simmons exercise video. Okay, so those are 2 things about technique and timing. Okay, now I'm going to show you and talk about what happens when you use the I'm going to learn new song approach, okay? And we'll start with Cripple Creek. So let's just analyze this for a second. So if I play Cripple Creek, it's the first 4 measures. It's okay. Now, as a beginner, if I'm trying to learn that whole thing, and we'll do a close-up on this one, trying to do the whole thing, I'd go something. It sounds something like this. I mean, that's kind of how the practice starts, and then the student will go back, play the first. Okay. Now, the best way to do this would be to divide it into exercises. So really, you take that first measure and you're going, okay, and you play it over and over again. Okay, now the next measure has a C chord. Okay, now going back to the first measure, what we have are two techniques. We have a pinch, where you're playing the fifth and the first string, and then we have a slide. Okay, so we have two different techniques. So actually, as a raw beginner, you would practice that measure like this. Okay, until you get a nice clear sound. Then you would go. So you practice that, then you'd stop that and you'd go to the second measure, and you've got a C chord there. Okay. Now the best way to at first remember your chords would be to make the chord, remove your hand, shake it, go back, shake it. Okay. Okay. Then to practice your roll, you make the chord, and we're going to play the fifth, second, and first string. So over and over. Now I'll give you a little hint. Do a drill where you play it 5 times, and if you play it perfectly, you go to the next speed or thing, and if you miss it, you have to start all over. So going back to measure 1. 1. Oh, missed it on the third, so I have to go back to number 1. Do it again. 1, 2, perfect. Now between each repetition, pause for just a minute and disconnect. Okay, so we go pause, disconnect. Do it again. Pause, disconnect. Once you've played it 5 times, you can either go to a faster speed or go to the next exercise. Then we go to the next exercise. Okay. Now, if you're doing the let's start at the beginning of the song approach, what happens? You're going something like. Generally, it's kind of a mess because you'll start playing the first measure and maybe you'll miss it, or maybe you'll do the first measure and get into the second one and miss it. So you keep playing that first measure. So you might play the first measure 100 times, 200 times. You play the second measure maybe 50, and then the third measure, which is, you may only play that, in this case, 25 times. So you're wondering, man, how come this one sounds so much better? Because every time I get into the song, I mess it up. Well, the reason is because you played this 100 or 200, you played this one maybe 50 or 100, and you played this one maybe 25 or 50. So you've played this particular exercise 4 times as many repetitions. Does that make sense? So that's why we play this a certain number of times, we play this a certain number of times, and we play the third one a certain number of times. Now, once you've learned the first 2, let's say, okay, that's the first one, second one, and hopefully you're following this. So this is number 1, and this is number 2. If you happen to have the Banjo Primer book, I guess you could look at it. Now, people think, okay, I can play those 2 things, so I'm done. No, you're not, because there's a transition between the 2 measures. So you go. transition. With your left hand, you've got to lift up your hand, move it, make the shape of a C chord, and put it down, okay? So once you've learned measure 1, and then you've learned measure 2, you then have to spend just as much time as it took to learn those, putting them together and making the transition between the two measures. All right, so we've talked about timing, and we've talked about learning your songs by doing drills and isolating things. And those are the two things, if you will add to whatever you're doing, that will help you. If you wish to get a Banjo Primer book or look at it, you can go to banjocompass.com and buy one. You can go to Amazon and buy one. And if you buy one through Amazon, you will get the discs, the DVD, and the CDs. Also, there's a link in the book once you get the book, and you can get downloads if you would prefer to have a download, because many homes can't even play a DVD anymore. If you have any questions about any of this, you can email me at Geoff, and my name's spelled Geoff, at, and the initials are C as in cat, V as in Victor, L as in Larry, S as in Sam.com. So that's Geoff at CVLS.com. Any questions? If there's something that's unclear about this, I can walk right in the studio. It's about 10 feet from my office, and I can shoot another video to answer your question, because for the last 40 years I've been working on material with the goal to try to make it as clear as possible for the beginner. That's my whole focus of life, is beginners, getting you to the point where you can play one song. We're also doing banjo camps, and we started doing them where we would have 3 instructors and 6 students. So that's 1 instructor for every 2 students, which was revolutionary. Sorry about that, because I think most camps for every instructor might have 4 students, 5 students, 10 students, and you just can't dial in on them. Well, since the virus, what's happened, we're doing 2 students and 2 instructors, and that has been almost a miracle. And we've done 6 of those camps. And once again, if you have any question about those, you can go to Geoff Hohwald. Of course, you have to spell my name right, geoffhohwald.com, and you'll see the bigger camps. Then you can contact me, and I'll be glad to explain how the smaller camps work. And they're up in the North Georgia mountains. Each student will get their own room with a private bath. Nobody's going to be coming into your area at all. And that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys have a great day. And if you have any questions, just contact me, and I'll be glad to help you in any way I can.